Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. It's your favorite part-time YouTuber, Crow, and I am desperately hoping that there is no news today regarding Chris Tyson or any of the other stuff going on, because I've actually wanted to talk about the situation with Assassin's Creed, but literally, like, every single day I go to record this video, one of my friends messaged me, is like, hey, they ain't giving you a break yet, you got something else to cover. So this actually matters to me because, one, I am a part-time gamer as well as a part-time YouTuber, but also I'm a total weeb, right? Like, I'm a massive weeb. Anime, all of it, manga. I go off on One Piece, all the good stuff. So as much as I've kind of been iffy on the Assassin's Creed franchise, I was a huge fan of Ghost of Tsushima, and when the idea of this game coming out, it was interesting to me until, well, you know, the whole thing with Yasuke happened. For those of you who don't know, Yasuke was an African man who was brought to Japan by Jesuits who were, I believe he was a slave of theirs. And the guy basically running the country at the time, Nobunaga, had never seen a black person before, was fascinated with him, and made him a retainer. Now, for some reason, and I don't know why, an individual known as Thomas Lockley, who's a white dude from Canada and was living in Japan at the time as an associate professor at Nihon University, decided to fabricate his backstory and claim that actually he was a samurai. This has led to a lot of backlash, specifically in the country of Japan, because Assassin's Creed Shadows, although none of the Assassin's Creed games have ever been based in reality, like they are 100% fictional games, they decided to parade around talking about how their game was featuring an actual samurai from Japanese history. That's where the problem began. They went with that marketing campaign. They even featured Thomas Lockley, who's been, completely discredited at this point. He's on the run. He's been fired from his job. And essentially, like, the main points behind his argument was he was given a home, he was given a sword, and he was given a stipend. And other Japanese historians have come out now going, listen, Nobunaga did that for a lot of people. Apparently, one time he featured a giant sumo tournament with like 1,500 sumo wrestlers, and 19 of them were given a home, a sword, and a stipend. So, like, it's just not true, right? Like, they've also mentioned, like, Japanese merchants at the time, Nobunaga also gave them a home, a sword, and a stipend. So, like, it's never been true. It was a falsification of history by a Canadian guy living in Japan. So now that Thomas Lockley's been fired, now he's been discredited, Ubisoft is issuing out this groveling apology to the Japanese community. They've released a statement in English and Japanese, more than likely because obviously this is impacting the English release of this game, because people here are upset that they did this and people in Japan are like outraged over it. Now you can see it on the screen. Go ahead and pause the video. I'll be honest with you, the purpose of this video is not reading out their apology statement because it's just PR nonsense. The big takeaway here is that they are acknowledging that, Yasuke being a samurai is not confirmed and that their game is entirely fictional. And the problem is, had they have just gone this route, none of this would have ever happened, right? And it is upsetting, okay? When you feature a game in Egypt, you feature a character who is local to that region, right? When you featured a game in the, United States, you made your character someone who is native to that country, right? Like an actual Native American. When you go and do it in Japan, you choose a black man. And it's like, why did you do this? If you're gonna, if you want to do Assassin's Creed in Africa, I think you'd actually do that. Again, I'm not joking. There is like actual interesting African lore that you can go into with Assassin's Creed, but they don't do that. They wanted to do it in Japan because of the popularity of Ghost of Tsushima, right? Which is a massively popular game. And they decided that they also wanted to go that DEI route of featuring a black character. It was a bad move. It was a stupid move. And it was even more idiotic to claim that the actual person, Yasuke, was a samurai to justify that decision. But yeah, they've issued out this groveling apology. The apology is to Japanese players specifically. It's in English and Japanese, obviously. But the reason why is this is an international incident in Japan. And by that I mean, It's something that's been trending for days in Japan. I think maybe now it may have stopped, but like for more than a week, it was trending in Japan because everybody in that country was really upset that they were trying to claim that this was actual Japanese history. And they don't care if you do fiction based on their history. Like, there's plenty of anime and manga that completely fictionalizes characters in very absurd ways. They don't care because they never present it as being connected to the actual history, right? Like, oh, Nobunaga exists, and now here's an anime about a girl who's got Nobunaga gun powers. Like, they never claimed Nobunaga was an actual woman. You know what I mean? Now, one of the other parts that's kind of interesting about it is there were like a Japanese user who's like, listen, you showed no respect for our country, and they're bringing up the fact that, you know, that they I mean, this is Zoro's sword from One Piece, okay? This is the sword that they're using for Yasuke. It's the sword of Zoro from One Piece, okay? And this guy goes, I think the story about Yasuke should be just considered fiction based on Yasuke. The issue of historical retelling is no longer a UBI issue, but a Lockley issue. However, Yasuke is no longer the problem. The plagiarism of materials from manga organizations and cultural heritage sites, the misrepresentation of Japanese history, and the misrepresentation of Japanese as Chinese, among other things, show disregard for Japan. The problem is these. And they're correct, okay? Because the other person that actually works at Ubisoft, who's actually in charge of verifying, like, you know, the authenticity of what they're doing, is apparently more concerned with gay love in feudal Japan. That was their big contribution to this game. I'm not kidding, by the way. That was their big contribution to the game. They didn't check anything else. That's why they're literally stealing Zoro's sword from One Piece and accidentally using Chinese language in their game. Like, really dumb. Really absolutely dumb. But in an attempt to beat out the stupidity from Ubisoft, we do have our beloved games journalists who are pissed the fuck off over this. So this is Alyssa Mercanti. I'm not going to go to her article, okay? But you can see it here. This was never about anything other than hate, okay? She's accusing the people upset of being racist, okay? The people in Japan are pissed off because you tried to pass this as like actual Japanese history, which was part of their marketing campaign. That's why all of this blew up. If you said it was fiction from the beginning and the whole story is fiction and it's just based on a guy who actually existed and this is our interpretation of it, you would have been fine. But like Ubisoft actually platformed Thomas Lockley, the guy that made up the entire fiction of Yasuke being a samurai. You can't detach the two. Like, you literally can't detach the two. So now what they're doing is going to, like, I assume that these are real tweets that they found, but in my experience, when I've tried to find these tweets, they have one like, if even that. So they go for like the most unhinged people that they can find and then go, this is what the actual campaign is about, which is just not true, right? Like, if that was true, if it was really just white people in the United States that were pissed off about it, Ubisoft would not issue out an apology in Japanese, right? Like, common sense would dictate how this would go, right? But not to these people. And yeah, obviously, Alyssa Mercanti is kind of a complete idiot. Okay, like, I'm not kidding. Okay, she made this entire thing about right-wing Trump supporters who are just filled with hate over the idea of a black guy swinging a sword. Like, just pissed off, unhinged. Pissed off and unhinged, not taking a single thing people are actually saying, right? Like, the use of a sword from the very popular series One Piece. How do you do that? Okay? Like, seriously, how did you do that? You have to be a complete idiot to have done that. But like I said, it doesn't end there, okay? Because The Gamer also wrote an article complaining about the apology to Japan by dictating that it's actually about the people in the United States that are pissed off, okay? Now, there is zero proof that he was ever a samurai. That was the big contention, that they tried to pass this off as actual Japanese history. Those were the problems. Those were the actual problems people had. So of course, the appropriate response to that would be, maybe just say your racist response to a video game is indicative of moral decay, get bent instead of this. These people do not care at all, okay? They were all happy and stoked and fapping off to the idea that a black guy was a samurai. And the fact that it's not true, the fact that he tried to lie, and the fact that those lies have been exposed in such a massive way that an associate professor in Japan has lost his job. The Japanese programs on TV based on his research have been taken down. And the only, literally the only people they got to actually try and back up Lockley after he had been fired was a communist who, again, was just using Lockley's own arguments. Somebody that's attached to a movie based around Yasuke, and someone else that's attached to the video game. These were the only three individuals, and they got crucified, right? Like, the Japanese social media accounts tore them a fucking new one, and then actual historians came out and said these people are brain damaged. Well, I mean, they're a lot more polite about it, but you get the gist of it. So anyways, I just find this situation to be absolutely hilarious because, again, this all could have been resolved. This all could have been completely avoided had Ubisoft not proclaimed that this guy was an actual Japanese samurai. But here we are, and still, games journalists just do not get it. They do not get it.